So, what if the way we've all been approaching neurodiversity at work is just fundamentally flawed? Today, we're going to dig into a new blueprint for career growth that suggests we may have been trying to solve the wrong problem this whole time. Okay, I want to start with a number that should just stop you in your tracks. For neurodivergent folks, the rates of unemployment and underemployment can hit as high as 85%. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. 85%. And that really leads us to the big question we're tackling in this explainer. Why? Why is this massive, incredibly valuable pool of talent being so systematically left behind? All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to look at this central paradox, check out a whole new model for support, get into the science of it, and this is the really cool part, figure out how we could actually measure if any of this stuff really works. Okay, so first up, we've got to wrap our heads around this huge disconnect that's right at the heart of the issue. People are calling it the neurodiversity paradox. And this is the core of it, right here. On one hand, you've got all this research that consistently points to these incredible strengths. We're talking hyperfocus, amazing systems thinking, enhanced creativity. But then, on the other hand, what do neurodivergent professionals actually face? Systemic career stagnation. It's often because of things like poor relationships with managers and just not getting promoted. It just doesn't add up. So the big question is, how do we fix this? Well, a new line of research is proposing an entirely new blueprint. And I mean, they're starting right from the ground up. And this quote right here is the perfect way to think about it. It's the central metaphor for this whole new model. Just picture a career as a giant skyscraper. You can't start building those high-rise floors, leadership, promotions, all that innovative stuff, if you haven't poured a solid foundation first. It's just common sense, right? So the proposed solution is this three-stage pipeline. Step 1, you pour that foundation. That's all about personal and psychological stability. Only after that's solid can you move to step 2, raising the actual structure. That's building self-efficacy, which is just a way of saying you believe in your own ability to get things done. And then, once that structure is up, you get to the final stage, learning how to navigate the world through self-advocacy. Okay, so let's really dig into that first step, because it is absolutely crucial. We're talking about stability. And look, this isn't about some fluffy office buzzword. This is about straight-up biology. I'm sure we've all heard the term psychological safety thrown around a lot lately. But here's the thing. The research this whole model is built on says it's way, way more than just a nice, vague feeling of being comfortable. Yeah, this approach actually gets into something called polyvagal theory, and what it does is reframe safety not as an opinion, but as a real, measurable, biological state. Seriously, think of it like a switch in your nervous system. It can either be flipped to threat detection, fight or flight mode, or it can be flipped to social engagement mode. The key is you literally cannot be in both modes at the same time. So what does that mean? It means this biological state of safety is completely non-negotiable. It's a prerequisite. When our nervous system actually feels safe, it turns down all those internal alarm bells and allows our bodies to focus on health, on restoration. It is the literal neural platform you need for cooperation, for trust, and for all that creative thinking that actually leads to career growth. Okay, so once that biological foundation of safety is finally poured and solid, the blueprint can move on to the next couple of stages, building up some momentum and figuring out how to navigate the, well, let's be honest, the often tricky social world of work. So with that stable base in place, the model brings in ideas from something called behavioral momentum theory. The best way to think about it is like trying to get a huge, heavy boulder rolling. You don't just shove it once. You start with small, consistent pushes, little wins, achievable actions that give you clear feedback. And that's what builds momentum. It overcomes that feeling of being stuck, and it fosters that absolutely crucial belief in yourself, that self-efficacy. But okay, even if you've got that self-belief, there's still a massive barrier that trips people up: communication. And this is where the concept of the double empathy problem comes in. It's a game changer because it explains that the issue isn't some deficit in one person. It's a mutual two-way misunderstanding. It's like two people are running completely different communication operating systems. And you can see this mismatch in action all the time, right? One communication style, let's say the more neurotypical one, often relies on reading between the lines, on subtext and implied meaning. Meanwhile, a more neurodivergent style might prefer really direct, literal information. When those two styles collide without understanding, you get this mutual breakdown. And those little misinterpretations, they add up, and they're what can really damage relationships with managers and totally derail promotions, no matter how good the person's actual work is. So, okay, we've got this really compelling new blueprint. It makes a lot of sense, but how in the world would we actually know if it works? And that brings us to the real core of this whole thing, a proposal for a study designed to test it. Yep, the proposal is basically to put this theory to the test in the real world. The idea is to build a whole leadership program based on the Stability-Efficacy-Advocacy pipeline, and then, you guessed it, rigorously measure the results. And when we say measure, we're not talking about fuzzy feelings. We mean getting super specific. The study proposes tracking concrete, number-based outcomes using scientifically validated scales. So we're talking about measurable changes in self-efficacy, the quality of that manager-employee relationship, and even hard numbers like retention rates and how many stretch assignments people are completing. And this table here kind of breaks it all down for us. It shows exactly what the study wants to measure, the established theory that explains why it matters, and the specific tool they'd use. So, for instance, to measure that manager relationship, they'd use something called the LMX7 scale, which is backed by a ton of research. See? This is all about bringing real, hard data to a problem that's been talked about in vague terms for way too long. So, at the end of the day, here is the core hypothesis, the big what if. By building that foundation of stability and then fostering self-efficacy, this kind of program should be able to interrupt that vicious cycle where miscommunication just leads to bad manager relationships and career stagnation. The expectation, the hope, is that you'd see manager relationship scores go up, retention go up, and promotions go up. A win-win-win. And that really brings us to the bigger picture, the real takeaway from all of this for pretty much every single workplace out there. For decades, let's be honest, the focus has always been on trying to fix or change the neurodivergent individual so they can fit into the existing system. This entire blueprint just flips that script completely on its head. It argues that the crucial point isn't the person. The problem is the fit between the person and the environment. And so the solution isn't to change the person, it's to improve the environment, improve the leadership, and improve the plan. And that leaves us with one final, and I think really powerful question to chew on. What if this whole approach, this focus on building a solid foundation, ensuring real psychological safety, and creating clear pathways for growth, what if that isn't just a neurodiversity initiative? What if the future of work isn't about trying to fix individuals at all, but instead it's about building better, more human, more supportive blueprints for absolutely everyone,